Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today for the second of our Addressing Imbalance community events. It was really lovely to speak to some of you in the networking lounge, and thank you so much for joining us today. We've got a really great agenda for you today, but before I get started and explain kind of what we've got coming up, I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping. So first of all, if you need closed captioning enabled, please do select, you should see it on your footer, you can enable closed captions. In addition, if you've got any kind of questions or anything during the presentations, please do pop them in the Q&A. You should see that on your right-hand side. If we can keep the chat, please do feel free to introduce yourself in the chat or share any relevant links or anything there. But if we can keep any questions for speakers in the Q&A, that would be brilliant. I'm trying to think what else. Oh yes, along the bottom, you should also see the option to raise your hand along the bottom of the screen. During the presentations, if you can avoid raising your hand, but once we get to the discussion and Q&A part of the session, please do feel free to raise your hand because we can invite you onto the stage if you'd like to ask your question in person. So as I said, we've got a really great agenda today. We've got a little bit of an update from the team at Good Finance. I'm joined by my colleagues Annie and Fayed, and we'll be sharing a little bit about some of the programs and projects that are going on at Good Finance to hopefully support you and your organisation. We've also got Joanne and Cecilia on the call today, who are from CAF Venturesome and Hatch Enterprise respectively, and we'll be talking a little bit about the social impact business programme, which ran a pilot event for women-led organisations who deal with kind of social and environmental impact. So they'll be talking a little bit more about the learnings from the pilot and what the plans are for the future of that programme. We've also got Josh Falconer-Roberts from Ubele, who will be talking about the Flexible Finance Fund that Ubele have partnered on, and a little bit more about how you can be involved with that. So I will pass over to my colleagues Annie and Fayed just to introduce themselves, and then we're going to share just a very short presentation before we get on to kind of the main presentations from our speakers.
Brilliant, thanks Olivia, and hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Great to see you all here. I'm Annie. I'm the digital content manager at Good Finance, so looking after all of our tools and resources on the website, as well as some of our marketing partnerships as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Fayed. I'm the engagement officer at Big Society Capital at Good Finance, and I'm mainly supporting Olivia with the Addressing Balance program, also hosting a podcast called Hidden Voices, which we'll touch upon shortly later, as well as a few other programs within the team as well.
Okay, so I will just bear with me. I'm just going to share my screen. Can everyone see that okay?
I can, yeah. Hopefully everyone else can. Do pop in the chat if you can't.
Okay, I'll pass over to you, Annie.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Olivia. And yes, hi everyone. I just wanted to give you a bit of a sneak preview really of what's in the pipeline for Good Finance, what's coming soon, and what we're kind of planning to help continue our mission to help charities and social enterprises to better navigate the world of social investment, which I think we'll all agree is something that's very much needed. So first of all, just to kind of touch upon something that we're in development for at the moment. So you might already be familiar with our Fund Mapper tool, and I know it actually came up in our room, but what it is, it's basically designed to provide quick and relevant connections to social investors and advisors that might be able to help you as per your own specific search criteria. So for example, we have various filters that you can use. So you could filter by the amount that you're looking to borrow, the type of financial product that you're exploring, if you know that, the location of your organization in case there's any location specific funders, as well as the social issue you're trying to tackle, to make sure you and your investor are really aligned on what's important to you. And the aim of this is also to encourage social enterprises, charities and community-led organisations to shop around when it comes to social investment, and really make sure they're aware of all the options that are available to them. And hopefully the idea is that they'll then end up with a solution that works best for them. That tool currently features a small number of advisors. I think there's about 20 who provide dedicated services to charities and social enterprises across various fields. Some examples might include financial management, enterprise development, legal guidance, that kind of thing. But what we're really looking to do is expand this section of the Fund Mapper tool, adding more advisors to the directory, alongside a showcase story for each one. And this is just so you can see how they might have helped an organisation like yours in the past, what level of support they can offer, and just to provide a little bit more of information about how they might be able to help you. As I said, we're still in quite early stages of the build process for this, but we are aiming to go live kind of this autumn, and we're really hoping that that directory will serve as quite a useful signposter for organisations within the sector that are looking for that extra level of support in what they're trying to achieve. Next, a very quick mention for a hub that we're developing, which has the aim of providing more information on how social investment can be used to help with your organisation's energy resilience after the winter we've had and kind of the, I guess, uncertainty of the rising energy bills. This is quite an important topic within the sector at the minute, and really very integral to kind of the resilience of charities and social enterprises on the whole. So whether that's a loan for energy saving measures, which could reduce your monthly bills, or community-owned energy solutions that actually generate a profit for the local community and the users that you serve, and kind of everything in between that as well. We're in the very early stages of this development, but it will, again, set to go live in the autumn ahead of winter, and we will be providing kind of key information about what funds are available, eligibility, criteria, what investors are involved in investing for energy resilience, case studies of how other organisations have improved their energy resilience measures, or kind of community-owned examples as well, and lots of blogs and other kind of podcasts and case studies on that topic too. So do keep your eyes peeled for that one. And finally, on this page, we've just launched our the first of our e-learning masterclasses, and they're designed to be a bit of a deep dive on topics that our users have told are important to them and they would like to understand more about. So the first of these classes is on legal structures, and that cohort has just gone live. It was open for alumni of our Social Investment Unpicked e-learning program only, but this will be shared more widely towards the middle of August, kind of end of this month. So keep your eyes peeled across our social media channels for kind of more information on how you can register your interest if that's something you'd like to get involved with. And in addition, the development for our second masterclass will be on due diligence, and that's well underway and in the kind of creation process at the moment, and we're hoping to launch that one before the end of this year as well. Brilliant. And final one from me, I just wanted to briefly kind of give a bit of a call out for our case study mapper tool. So this was actually developed last year as a bit more of a user-friendly way to kind of for our users to browse our case study collection. I think one of the things, one of the big learnings for Good Finance over the years is that one of the best ways we can all better understand and learn about social investment is through seeing what it looks like in practice. So real life examples of how organisations have used social investment to deliver social impact, and really crucially what that looks like in practice. Good Finance is and always will be user-led, and so kind of we listened to what users said was important to them to understand the true picture of social investment and what that looks like. And so each and every case study includes 5 key details. So let's see if I can remember all of these. The amount any social enterprise, charity or community organisation borrowed in the first place, so the amount that they needed in social investment, the cost of capital they were charged for that social investment deal, so that's the same as interest rate, so how much interest they were paying for the loan, the duration, so how long the loan term was, which as we all know can affect the affordability as well as the amount you end up paying back as well, so that's a crucial element included. What type of financial products they use, so for example, if you're exploring community shares or a secured loan, you can look at other organisations that have harnessed the power of those financial products to get a better understanding of what that might mean for you. And finally, but I think very importantly, the revenue for the financial year before taking on social investment. So I think that's really key in understanding, you know, what's affordable, what's not, and how people with varying kind of incomes are using social investment and what that might mean for your organisation. And so, yeah, please do, I'll pop the link in the chat after this, but please do take a look at the case study mapper, look for examples of social investment near you, and definitely use those filters to search to find out more about how organisations have used social investment. I think I'm handing over to Fayed now just to do a bit of a deep dive into one of our recent case studies.
Thank you, Annie. Hi, everyone. Again, welcome. It's great to have you here. Just to give you a brief share on Hidden Voices. So this is a podcast that's been developed to really understand the journey of founders and also frontline organizations who have taken on social investment. So in the latest, you could say, installment of the Hidden Voices podcast, I had the pleasure of speaking with Louis Spite, who is a European record-breaking Paralympian wheelchair racer from Doncaster, and he's been named one of the most exceptional young entrepreneurs in the UK. So Louis is the founder of Omnis Circumvado CIC, who are a specialist sports coaching company that's dedicated to providing inclusive and adapted sporting opportunities for people of all ages with complex needs. So during the podcast, Louis effectively shared his journey on taking on social investment and how it really supported his impact on the communities he served. So I'll share the link below in the chat, but please feel free to have a watch of the podcast. And the link will be shared along with the case study if you want to take a little bit more of a deep dive into how Omnis Circumvado used social investment and where it helped support their offering to the communities they support.
Thanks, Fayed. I just wanted to touch a little bit more on one of the programs and one of the events that we're running. The program Social Investment Unpicked is a cohort-based learning program. I know some people on the call have already experienced, have gone through this program already, but for anyone who's not familiar with it, I just wanted to share a little bit more information. It's a program essentially that is for anyone who's based within the UK who wants to learn more about the role of social investment. Originally, we developed this program for infrastructure organisations and networks who were maybe getting inquiries from members within their network around social investment. But actually, as the program has progressed, we've had 13 cohorts to date. We've had a range of different types of organisation in attendance. We get some social investors who go through the programme. We get some people from social enterprises and charities. We get capacity builders, and we get infrastructure organisations. So it really is open to anyone who wants to increase their knowledge. The learning takes place online, typically across 6 to 7 weeks. We have 4 modules. Which deep dive into the different types of social investment, their application in the real world. So we look at some real life case studies and the types of funding that other organisations have accessed and how and why they've decided on this type of investment. We look at kind of measuring your impact, your theory of change, and just really it gives a really good kind of foundational understanding of social investment for anyone who's keen to learn more. We do weekly webinars, so we have two webinars where we'll dive into the learning from the modules, and then we have 4 sessions which are more drop-in sessions, so very optional if you want to network more with your cohort. If you have any questions that come up during the course, the team at Good Finance are here to support with your learning. and assist you through that. It's important to note as well that we have bursaries available. All the learning, all the tools and resources and programs in Good Finance are all free of charge, but we recognise that taking kind of time out of your day or time out of your week to do something kind of outside your normal day job can be typically quite challenging. And the bursaries were granted to us from the Connect Fund managed by Barrow Cadbury Trust, and they're intended for anyone who is leading an organisation that is working directly with leaders who've experienced marginalisation, or if you yourself come from an underrepresented background and have maybe faced challenges when accessing social investment or keen to learn more, bursaries are available to support your time and capacity in going through the programme. So please do, I will share links, all the programmes and all the resources we talk about. I'll make sure that the links are all included in the post-event email, and we'll also share these slides. So please do take a look or drop myself or any of the team a message if you're keen to learn a little bit more. And the final thing that I wanted to speak about was the hackathon. I know Sam was on the call, so we'll be able to hopefully answer some questions on this later on. But we are working with the Diversity Forum on this event. Some of you will remember that last year we ran Addressing Imbalance Live, which was an in-person event, looking at kind of some of the challenges around social investment, but also the opportunities that it would deliver. And we came away with some key learnings, and we felt that these learnings fell loosely under these three categories of think big, make space, and fund equitably. So by thinking big, essentially, the overall goal is to ensure that more funding and more investment reaches diverse communities. But how do we actually know kind of that we're doing it right? How do we measure that progress, and how do we understand kind of what works and what doesn't? Making space. We recognise that there are a lot of different barriers to social investment, and different people will experience different barriers in different ways. Unfortunately, there's no one size fits all, and there's no one solution that fits everybody. But we want to understand how we actually take some of those challenges, those barriers, and bring about solutions which will make tangible change. And finally, fund equitably. What's needed to ensure that more capital reaches diverse communities? So we'll hear in a minute from some of the programs and projects that are happening that are really helping to channel additional investment opportunities for diverse leaders. But essentially at this event, this is a collective brainstorm. We want people to come along with an idea or with kind of some thoughts on what will make social investment a better place. The event will be relatively small. We imagine about 36 to 40 people at the event, and it will be kind of split between 3 different groups of people. So we will have leaders from social enterprises and charities, we'll have investors, and then we'll have people who don't kind of fit evenly within one of those groups, but who may be kind of from an infrastructure organisation supporting marginalised groups, or who are working to kind of progress, I guess, the social equity and the social equity agenda, and make social investment kind of more equitable and a more equal space. So essentially our ask to you is, if you're interested, if you'd like to come along to this event, if you'd like to be involved in kind of working towards solutions, please do let us know. We're really keen to have people along. We also have bursaries available for this event to support people's time in attending. Essentially, what we want to do is bring people together to work in small groups, to work on solutions to these challenges, or work, I guess, challenges that fit under each of these headings. And what we'd really love to do is at the end have some prototype ideas that we present, that are presented, and then as a group we collectively decide which ideas are really going to be viable and what support is needed to bring those ideas into action. So please do get in touch if you'd like to be involved in that. We'd love to have you along. I will stop sharing my screen. So thank you very much, and thanks so much for sharing some of the links in the chat there. What I will do now is I'm going to move on to our key presentations. I'm going to introduce Cecilia and Joanne, who are going to talk a little bit more about the Social Impact Business Programme. And as I say, once the presentations have finished, we'll have plenty of time for Q&A, so please do pop your questions in the chat, and look forward to speaking to you again later. Thanks very much, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Hi. Should we start with some very quick introductions before we dive into the program, Joanne? Hi, everyone. I'm Cecilia. I am the acting co-head of programs at Hatch Enterprise. In case you're not familiar, Hatch Enterprise is a charity that supports underrepresented entrepreneurs to grow their impact businesses. We do this through our cohort programs, our open to all public events, and our partnerships. And yeah, we're really excited today to be joined to join the event today and talk together with Joanne from CAF about the program that we ran.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name's Joanne. I am the senior manager in the Venturesome team at CAF, Charities Aid Foundation, and the Venturesome team is CAF's social investment team. We've been making social investments all over the UK, cause universal for the last 20 years. But towards the end of 2020, we thought we need to really focus on where we can reach underrepresented funders. So working with Hatch, who we've got a really good partnership with, we designed the Social Business Impact Programme, and look forward to telling you more about that. But we do lend, as I said, all over the UK to everybody, and we are cause universal. So if you want to talk to me about anything else after this, I'd be very happy to chat to you.
Amazing. So let's just jump straight in. We've got a little presentation that we'll be sharing. Second. Hopefully that is all for everyone. Yes. So yes, as we said, we're going to be talking about the Social Business Impact Program that we were able to run from September to March. We're going to be talking a little bit about what the program consisted of, and then some key impact metrics that we were able to understand after the program. So just to give a little bit of more context in what the program was all about. So the program was advertised to founders who were looking to scale their impact businesses and raise social investment. Any founders that were accepted into program would have the opportunity to apply for up to 70,000 in blended finance, which was a mixture of a 0% interest loan repayable over 5 years and a non-repayable grant. And in almost all of the cases, the split was that it was 29% grant, and in one of the cases, it was 48%. So being part of the cohort didn't necessarily guarantee social investment. So every single founder in the cohort was subject to their funding application and their pitch being well received by a 6-person investment committee and a strict due diligence process carried out by the investment team at CAF. And then how did we actually arrive here? And in a bit, I'll pass a bit more to Joanne to dive deeper into it. But basically, so as Joanne said, Venturesome, that is the pioneering social investment team at Charities Aid Foundation, were able to raise the loan and the grant capital, both from JP Chase and CAF's private philanthropy clients. CAF were also instrumental in designing the program. And with, from the interview and acceptance process through to the pitching. And CAF's responsibilities really were to review the funding applications and perform the due diligence checks. And aside from that, each founder was also assigned a CAF contact to help them develop their applications. When it came to JP Chase, they were also involved in providing some social investment criteria. They also hosted the in-person launch party, and they provided volunteers that were assigned to founders to support them with specific business challenges, like, for example, cash flow forecasting. And lastly, Hatch was responsible for, delivering the entrepreneurship support program, sourcing the experts, and facilitating the learning sessions. Yeah, Joanne, feel free to jump in if there's anything you'd like to add here.
I think there's just a couple of points I'd like to add there. So, as I said, this came about in discussions with Hatch as to what we could do. And the strict criteria of social businesses for women of colour in London was from our funder JP Morgan, because that was answering their CSR criteria. Now, as I said, we could do that all over the UK, and Hatch can do it all over the UK. But just for this pilot, it was focused very much in London. Our team did work closely with the Hatch team and also with the founders, because we know, as I've just heard somebody say, you don't have the capacity to write a big funding bid. So just by an initial conversation, talking to us about your needs and what you're looking for, our team were able to help with those applications and to really guide the founders through their pitching. So they came to our investment committee, and the investment committee was made up mostly of a group of diverse women, a lot of them with lived experience. So they were hearing from founders who had gone through similar experiences to their own. So they really knew what these women were looking for, and they were able to support them through. You'll hear that some didn't get through. Those that went on the 6-month program didn't always get through, but there are always reasons why these things don't happen. But we've got 7 people getting their social investment, or going through the process of drawing down their social investment. But I think that the other point, this was a real collaboration. We worked in partnership with Hatch and very much supported by JP Morgan.
Amazing. And yeah, expanding on on the program itself and what it comprised of. So we collaborated to design it so that it had 11 expert-led sessions, including 3 bonus sessions that included a pitch practice with the team at a loan and well-being workshop, and the in-person launch event with JP Morgan. So when it comes to the facilitation, we were able to tap into the Hatch network of experts to provide interactive sessions and to really hold the space and hold group discussions as well. And then founders were also able to tap into 11 hours of one-on-one support. So 5 of these predetermined sessions were aligned with the first 5 topics of the program. So they corresponded to certain sections of the funding application to be filled out. And then with the remaining 6 sessions, they were able to book with whichever expert they chose. And everything culminated into a pitching day, which is a hybrid event at the CAF office. And it entailed a 5-minute pitch to the CAF investment committee to support their funding application, followed by 10 minutes of questions. And the key aim is really for these founders to be able to demonstrate their great ideas, what past impact their business had, and how the funding would allow them to grow. And yeah, John has already touched a little bit on the eligibility criteria, but we were looking for social or environmental impact businesses. So either CIC, CLG, and CLS with asset lock. They had to be run by a woman or a minority gender person of color, based in Greater London, and with a turnover of around 50 to 300,000 pounds. So when it came to the program, we were able to receive 44 applications, and we took 26 founders to interview, and we accepted 10. And it was amazing to see those 10 founders graduating from the program, and now, as of July, with 6 successful funds awarded. This is just a very brief overview of, the cohort composition. So we're able to reach the targets of what we wanted, which was 100% of the cohort identified as women, 100% identified as Black, Asian, or ethnic minority, and then 80% was based in London and 20% in the southeast of England. A little bit more on the composition and the business structure of these founders. So 60% of them were CIC, while the rest was either a CLS and then 10% CLG and charity. And then the type of impact that these founders had for their business was mostly about reducing inequalities, and then followed by, good health and well-being and quality education. So as I said, we're able to already start seeing the impact of participating in this program, especially when we compare the start versus the end of the program. So for example, when it comes to the total turnover from sales, we can see there was over 50% increase for most of the founders, as well as the total amount of funding secured, either equity loans or grants as well. So there was an increase of more than 80%. And then above everything, we were really able to see how founders really felt that they were able to improve not only the amount of funding, but also their project management skills, improve their services or their products, improve the fact that they're able to reach more customers, but more than anything, really feel that they had increased the social or environmental impact of their business. So this is a little breakdown of the funding outcomes. So as we said, as of July, 6 out of the 10 founders have been successfully funded, with 1 still under review. We had another founder that was unsuccessful based on a past undeclared issue. Another was successful based on issues that appeared during the due diligence process. And then finally, a founder that did not submit the application despite, extending the deadlines and providing additional support. We also brought in some case studies because I think it's so important to bring, faces into, these projects and really understand the impact of that projects like this have. So we have founders like Pinky Miles from Off the Streets, Less Heat CIC, that, as you can see here on when we talk about the growth that she had in their business and her telling us that she feels that she really knows now how to access the funding she needs, how to measure the impact on her business, how to have access to a network that can help her access expertise and opportunities, and how to feel more confident managing her business finances. Another example is Tamika Smith, who's actually a 4-time Hatch graduate, but that said that this social business impact program was one of the best things that she could have done for her business, and feeling like the whole process made her do a deep dive into her business and to work on specific areas that she didn't used to focus on. And then last but not least, we would like to share just a few of the learnings that we had through this process. So I think one of the first positive things was definitely being able to collaborate with CAF and, split the process of with CAF taking the lead on due diligence and the funding, and Hatch leading more on the recruitment and the program delivery. But more than anything, we felt like the ability to equip founders with the skills and the experience of going through a due diligence process, or learn how to write an application and really learn how to refine the way that they apply and that they understand funding and investment opportunities moving forward. And then there were other, program related challenges, which is, understanding that the due diligence process is difficult, and having enough time during the program to let the founders know what expectations when it comes to time to go through that process, and then also being able to tailor the program to have even more well-being focused, specific opportunities to learn, because, funding and apply for funding is an intense process. But I'm sure, Joanne, you have other learnings as well.
And then I think it's important to note that CAF as an organisation, it's a large charity, and we serve donors to put their money into CAF for us to get that money out to charities and social enterprises. So we are the nexus of donors and social enterprises and charities. So we have to be extremely careful as where our money goes. And we're lending out JP Morgan's money and other funders, giving away other funders' money. We have to be really, really careful. So even once our founders had been accepted or approved by our investment committee, it's taken some months to go through all that post-deal process. And I know that that's frustrating for some organizations. So we just have to be really upfront about that, as we want to get the money out to you as soon as possible. But our verification and our KYC teams have to be extremely careful, and they do go into a lot of detail. And this is what we were saying. Somebody couldn't move forward because there was an issue with one of their trustees. Somebody decided not to move forward because of the time it was going to take to concentrate on the actual funding application. Even though our team were writing it, she was having to meet with them and talk to them to really get her point across. And so we have deployed quite a bit of the money, but not all of it. And I know I was chasing up some of the team today. They're working as hard as they can to get that money out of the door, because we know that you need it. But yeah, that, as I say, this was our pilot, and we'd like to hear more about experiences that people have had with trying to access funding, because we are currently redesigning our funds, and we'd hope to bring the social business impact program all over the UK. So I'm particularly here today to learn and hear from you as to what you need from social investment. Thank you.
So just unmute myself. Thank you both so much. That was really interesting, and it was great to hear more about the programme and the pilot. And I've seen a few questions coming in. I know I've got lots of questions, and I think I've seen a hand raised as well. But what we'll do is I'll bring Josh on next, and then we'll come back and do a little bit of a Q&A and discussion, if that works okay. But thank you very much. That was really interesting. So bear with me just one moment, and I'm just going to bring Josh on the stage. So Josh is the Flexible Finance Programme Lead at Ubele, and we'll be talking a little bit more about the Flexible Finance Programme. So thank you very much for joining us, Josh, and over to you.
Thanks, Olivia, and hi, everyone. Just give me 2 seconds. I'm going to try and share my screen with you. I don't know, I can't see anybody's cameras or the chat. Olivia, I don't know if you can let me know if you can see the screen.
Yeah, all good.
Great, thank you so much. Great, hi everyone. As Olivia says, I'm the project lead for Flexible Finance at Ubele. I'm going to be chatting you through the Flexible Finance program and partnership, giving you a little bit of kind of context and detail around that, and talking about the work we've done, and then I'll finish off by talking about how you might be able to get involved or support what we're doing. So I suppose just to start off, I work for an organisation called the Ubele Initiative. We are an African diaspora-led infrastructure plus organisation empowering the Black and racially minoritized communities in the UK. What this means is that we are kind of primarily an infrastructure organisation, supporting the work of community organisations and community leaders and community groups across the UK. The plus is that we also do work directly within communities. I'm currently sitting in a community space, the Wolves Horticultural Centre in Haringey, and there's a number of other kind of initiatives and projects we run kind of directly within communities as well. But our primary focus is on kind of providing the infrastructure for community organisations and leaders to thrive and do the important work they do within their own communities. We do our work kind of based around 4 key pillars. So this
Josh,
is...
sorry to interrupt. Yep. I think there's a bit of a problem with your screen sharing. It was working okay, but for some reason it's stopped sharing. So if you don't mind, maybe stop sharing and reshare. Oh, yeah, it seems to be working now.
Yes. Can you still see it now?
Yeah.
I'll just change the slide.
Yeah, I can see it now.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Let me know if that happens again. So I'm just going to talk you quickly through, we have 4 core pillars to the work we do. The first one is community wealth building, which is strengthening our communities through enterprise and asset development. We also work to advocate for equity and justice within our communities. We strengthen our infrastructure and voice, and we also do a lot of work kind of developing people, groups and organizations, so kind of working specifically with those community organizations and leaders. Flexible finance itself is part of, or sits under that first pillar of strengthening our communities through enterprise and asset development. I suppose particularly through the kind of enterprise development. There's someone else on the call, JC, who works on the enterprise development program, which also kind of sits under that pillar for Ubele as well as a whole host of other projects and programs that we run. So to talk about flexible finance more specifically, flexible finance itself is a blended finance scheme supporting Black and racially minoritized-led charities and social enterprises to access social investment. When we say social investment, in this case, we mean loan finance. And flexible finance is actually a partnership between a number of partners. So ourselves, Ubele, and an organization, a similar organization called Create Equity. We have partnered with the social investment business, who are the loan operator, and also Access, who are a grant funder. So Access have put forward £2 million to provide the grant aspect of the blended finance scheme.
Josh, apologies. Yeah. It's happened again. It seems to share the slides, and then for some reason it stops working.
If you want, I could probably present without the slides if it's distracting.
Yeah, I can see it. We can see it now, but for some reason it seems to share it and then it goes off. I'm not sure why that's happening, but yeah, if you don't mind maybe doing it without the slides, and then I can share the slides with everyone following the event.
You know, I'll try one more time with the slides, and if it happens again, I'll switch off. Maybe I'll just keep moving my mouse or something to see if that helps.
Perfect. No, thank you.
Great. Okay. Sorry about that, everyone. Yes, flexible finance. It's a partnership. So it's a blended finance scheme, but it's run by a group of partners: ourselves, Create Equity, social investment business, and Access. And yeah, I suppose just to kind of quickly get into the detail of what flexible finance is. So it's a loan fund, and it offers loans of between £50,000 and £1.5 million to charities and social enterprises. And then the blended finance element, there's up to 100% match grant funding available to those who secure loans, which is capped at 200K. And yeah, I suppose the eligibility, or who is it for organizations that are charities or social enterprises. Organizations must be Black or racially minoritized led, so must have their board or senior leadership must be greater than 50% or 51% Black or racially minoritized communities. Organizations must have over 200K turnover, be based in England, and have been operating for over 2 years. If all of that applies to your organization and you're looking for social investment, do get in contact with me after this call. And yeah, to talk a bit about why kind of we started the flexible finance scheme, ultimately because it's down to kind of inequality and social investment. I don't think I need to explain the kind of fundamentals of that to anybody who's part of addressing imbalance. But there were reports such as the Adibawali report that really highlighted the issues that were kind of present in the social investment sector. We also work with SIB and kind of their own analysis of over 5,000 organizations that had kind of applied for investment through them, showed that quite clearly that Black and racially minoritized-led organizations tended to be smaller in size and less likely to access or secure loan finance. And then there was something called the Resilience and Recovery Loan Fund, which was a fund that was set up during COVID. And it's the predecessor to the current fund that Flexible Finance is based on. When SIB did an analysis of the Resilience and Recovery Loan Fund, they found that only 4% of investees were from Black or racially minority-led organizations. So kind of based on all of that, SIB kind of asked us to kind of work with them to help them design a fund that would make loan finance more accessible to Black and racially minoritized-led charities and social enterprises. So we've done a number of things with SIB, and really, I suppose it is kind of to SIB's credit how kind of open they've been to kind of working with ourselves and Create Equity on the flexible finance scheme to make it really work for organizations led by people from our communities. In terms of, I suppose, yeah, it kind of breaks down into 3 key areas: the kind of design, outreach, and then application support. In terms of the design of the fund, obviously the massive thing was being able to secure grant funding from Access to allow us to be able to offer match funding on the loans in the form of grants, to make those kind of loans a lot more affordable and accessible for people from our communities. And then we also did some work around the kind of turnover threshold or turnover criteria and the kind of loan criteria, kind of essentially acknowledging the smaller size that organizations led by people from racially minoritized communities normally come with, and the kind of smaller amounts they're maybe looking for, or smaller amounts they're able to finance ultimately. So yeah, we kind of, I suppose to say flexible finance is based on something called the Recovery Loan Fund, which is open to organizations led by anybody. And yeah, the flexible finance, if organizations are eligible for flexible finance, the turnover threshold and the minimum loan threshold is lower for that. And then SIB has also kind of worked to remove kind of restrictions around trading or unrestricted income thresholds for charitable organizations, and they've been very open to those thresholds for social enterprises as well, open and flexible around those thresholds for social enterprises as well. Secondly, we've done a lot of work on outreach. So ourselves, Ubele has done a lot of targeted comms to organizations led by people from our communities, to kind of access them and I suppose engage an audience and groups of organizations that SIB and social investors wouldn't normally reach. And we've also done some targeted outreach through our networks. For example, I mentioned the Enterprise Development Program run by Ubele, run by JC, who's on the call, and kind of doing targeted outreach through that. So using these kind of specific networks that are kind of built through other programs that we've run to target organizations that are likely to be eligible. And then finally, we've worked on kind of application support. So we, as Ubele, provide flexible and bespoke both pre-application and application support to organizations who are interested in taking up the flexible finance offer. So what this looks like is I will have kind of calls with organizations that are kind of interested in social investment, in loan finance, but aren't quite sure it's for them, or aren't quite sure that how, what the process is and whether they can make it through. And I'm there to really talk them through it, and work with them to get them to a stage where they're ready to apply. And then once organizations apply, I will also kind of work with them through the process. And this is quite flexible. For some organizations, it's just making sure they're aware of the process, what will be needed from them, what the expectations from SIB, who ultimately assess the applications, will be, to doing a bit more intensive support. So helping them think about how to structure their kind of their investment proposition for SIB, or if there's kind of specific information that has been requested that they don't quite understand, I might help them kind of understand what they need to provide and help them work through that as well. And then we also provide post-investment support kind of where necessary. And I think one thing I actually didn't mention earlier is that part of the offer with flexible finance is that there is the opportunity for a post-investment grant, and this can go if kind of through the assessment process, SIB have identified, or SIB or Ubele have identified that there are kind of parts of the business that maybe need some support. There is an offer of some unrestricted grant to support the business to kind of improve. So it might be in improving their financial management systems, or support with improving their governance through kind of bringing in some new kind of independent board members. And this is really helpful for the organizations as well. So I suppose it kind of speaks to a much more supportive approach of social investors to supporting their investees. And yeah, so just quickly to say on kind of like the progress we've made and the successes we've had so far. So flexible finance has been running for about a year now, but there was a bit of a break in between, break in that year. But it's been going for about a year, and in that time we've supported Black and racially minoritized led organizations to secure around 1.5 million in investment and funding. And yeah, I mentioned earlier that the flexible finance and the recovery loan fund, its predecessor was called the Resilience and Recovery Loan Fund, which had only around 4% of its investees from Black and racially minoritized led backgrounds. This fund, after a year, we're already seeing over 20% of investees from racially minoritized backgrounds. We haven't come to the end of the fund, so it's not a full evaluation of the work we've done, but the results at the moment are very positive, and we're really proud of where we've got to at this stage. And finally, I just wanted to talk about how you might support us. And yeah, I think given that we're kind of in this addressing imbalance group, and we're all kind of working towards making social investment more kind of equal and inclusive. I just want to talk about a few kind of points around supporting us. And firstly, there's a lot of expertise in the room, and I would love your feedback on the work we're doing and your questions. They would be great to hear. They're only going to push us to do better. Secondly, it'd be great. Like we're really looking to kind of engage as many organizations as possible, and I know there are a lot of organizations with really great networks kind of on this call and part of this group, and we'd love you to share this opportunity with your channels and networks. We are actually starting or kind of creating some assets and resources to facilitate organizations to do that, and to do that well, and to do it efficiently, which I think what I'll do is I'll drop my contact details in the chat, and Olivia can share them as well. But if that's something you're interested in terms of sharing the opportunity further, or you'd like to invite me in to come and give a talk at your organization, or talk to the kind of network and audience that you have, that's something I'd love to do as well. So do get in contact if that's something you might be interested in. And then thirdly, tell us how else we might be able to work together to promote flexible finance, or just more accessible social investment opportunities in general. We're always looking to work with others and partner, and our aim is really to make social investment more accessible. We're very happy to work with others on that. I will stop there, but happy to take any questions as I jump back into the room.
Thanks very much, Josh. I will share, if it's okay, I will share your slides as well after the presentation, because I know they were cutting out a little bit, but thank you, that was really interesting. And I've noticed there's been a few comments, people interested in sharing the marketing assets and stuff, and a few questions coming through as well. Please do continue to put any of your questions in the chat, and we will come to those. What I'm going to do is bring back Joanne and Cecilia as well to the stage, and we will look at some of the questions that have been coming through. And just to say as well, we will have a little bit of time for networking at the end of this session. So Josh, if you're still around and you're back on the Ubelli table, hopefully people can come and chat to you there a little bit more if they're interested in learning more about flexible finance. So just coming, a couple of questions that have come through from the audience, and I'm just going to show on stage. I think this was one that came through specifically around the social impact business fund, around what sort of issues would make a participant ineligible. So Joanne or Cecilia, I'm not sure if you can talk a little bit more about what kind of things, I guess, would make it difficult for your organisations to invest.
I'll just jump in for the funding, because it's the funding side. As I said, we have to clear all trustees through KYC. So if any of your trustees have got any issues that are hiding in their cupboards, it's best that we know up front rather than us discovering it half the way through. It is also because of CAF being a charity, we have to be really careful about lending to companies limited by shares. So you have to have that asset lot. And this fund, JP Morgan didn't want to lend to charities, which it sounds a little counterintuitive, but they were looking to improve the social businesses. That was their focus. So we did have a little bit of CLSs or charities, but we were able to find other funders to be able to fund the charities. So it's it's not really ineligibility, it's rather your suitability, because also we wouldn't want to saddle you with any debt, even though it was interest free, that we didn't think you'd be able to pay back. And that's the really important thing, is the loan part of the blended finance is a loan. It isn't to be seen as a grant that, you know, the loan will be written off. You do have to can demonstrate to us that your social business can generate enough income to make those monthly repayments, however small they are. I don't know if Cecilia's got any other comments on that.
No, I think you covered that part.
And I guess that's something that the due diligence process really does draw out. It really is kind of a 360 analysis of your organisation. And I know kind of from some of the organisations that we've spoken to, I don't think there's anyone who really enjoys the due diligence process. It's very, I guess it feels very invasive at times, but it does, some of the feedback that we get from organisations is it's difficult, but it does make your business better. And I don't know if that's something that you find, even if the people who maybe weren't successful in their loan applications, that kind of going through that process did really help to strengthen, I guess, their business resilience and kind of the modelling kind of their organisations.
I think we see that all the time. You know, people say it took the time, and as we say, we try to help as much as possible by writing the applications, but you still have to give us the information. And there's a lot of toing and froing conversation, so it does take the time, but it makes the organisations think about how they are going to repay and what their business model is, and hopefully they become more resilient. And yeah, as Josh said as well, most social investors do offer post-investment support, so that it's not like you just get a loan from the bank and if you can't repay it, they're coming down on you or foreclosing on you. Social investors don't do that. We are flexible. We can offer repayment holidays. We can work with you to see if there are other organisations that we can bring in to support you. And our investment team are really trained up to work with social enterprises and charities to help them along their journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Joanne. There's another comment that due diligence is obviously an important part of the business. However, I'm constantly confronted that due diligence is a pain point for grassroots startups and SMEs. What has been done to provide equitable solutions? So I guess I'm curious in both cases of the Flexible Finance Fund and the Social Impact Business Programme of how the due diligence process has been developed, I guess, with diversity-led organisations or grassroots organisations in mind. Sorry,
yeah,
Josh.
I can jump in on that. I suppose maybe just initially to respond directly to the comment, and in terms of flexible finance, I suppose we're generally not engaging with kind of smaller organizations or like, you know, kind of startup type organizations, given that the eligibility criteria is a minimum turnover of 200K and have been operating for 2 years. I know there's another comment in the chat around that as well, which we can maybe come to, but yeah, just to say that. But in terms of, yeah, I suppose how SIB work and how we work, like I've been really impressed by the kind of processes and the assessment process that we have for flexible finance, where essentially SIB kind of take a lot of the burden of kind of building the case or the application for social investment. So if you apply to flexible finance, your application, I would say, is more of an expression of interest. It's very short, less than 1,000 words in general. And then what happens after that, you're essentially assessed to see if you're kind of eligible and there's no kind of major concerns. And then after that point, you'll be assigned a relationship manager, and is really the responsibility of the relationship manager to kind of build that case. And they'll normally do that through maybe like a couple of calls and then some back and forth by emails and requests for documents. And it's their responsibility to kind of build this big kind of 10-page assessment that they write up. But essentially what they're doing is, because it works like that, it means that you as the investee, the potential investee, aren't having to kind of wade through these kind of really big applications and kind of guess what the social investor wants. So that's something that for me is kind of making that process a lot more accessible and inclusive. And then obviously kind of the other aspect of it is the involvement of the partners, so ourselves, Ubele and Create Equity, and we are kind of there working alongside and almost between SIB and the potential investees. And you know, where there are kind of questions that come up that are stumping investees, we can kind of work with them to work through that and provide that support. So yeah, from my perspective, the kind of setup, particularly of flexible finance with the involvement of ourselves, really is really supportive of yeah, I suppose making that process more kind of inclusive and accessible.
And thank you, Josh. I was going to say, in a very similar way, how we work with Hatch on the Social Business Impact Programme, but this Social Business Impact Programme was designed for earlier stage. So you can see when you're in the social investment market, we're all trying to help, and some people can do one thing and some people can do another. So we were focusing on earlier stage and the organisations that have been through the Hatch programmes. And we know that the due diligence for a small loan, for a loan of only, say, £40,000 with a grant of 30, doesn't need as much due diligence as something sort of, you know, 250, 500,000. So we do try to tailor that level of due diligence to make it appropriate for the size of the loan.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that's really interesting in both the funds is that blend has been a really crucial aspect of having that grant funding as well as social investment. And I'm interested maybe to find out a little bit more about why you think that's so important within making it, I guess, more inclusive.
I'm going to let Josh go first.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose fundamentally, organizations that are led by, you know, diverse founders or like underrepresented founders or leaders are generally kind of they've historically, you know, there's a lot of historical reasons that those organizations, you know, they've been underinvested in and inhibited, and there've been a lot of barriers to their development. Yeah. Over the long term, and that kind of plays out in the sort of size and the development of those organizations when they get to the stage when they might be applying for kind of funding or investment, and therefore I suppose to kind of make the same offer or kind of judge them by the exact same standards is considered, you know, the playing field is not level, and therefore to kind of act as if it is unfair and unjust, and that's where this kind of the importance of this kind of blended finance comes in. Essentially, what the blended finance is doing is kind of saying, you know, we're going to make this more accessible. We're going to make this kind of a cheaper kind of proposition for your organization, for your business, and make it more accessible for you. And that's for me where the importance is. And I suppose it kind of acts as I suppose potentially as a stepping stone, and a way to sort of a stepping stone from maybe kind of 100% grant funding to step towards more purely kind of social investment.
I think for us as well, we see that the blended finance is so needed, particularly in this climate, because it just offsets what is the loan, and it's unrestricted. And as we all say, people who are trying to access social investment who don't even know what social investment is, you know, their trustees or their board are only thinking of grants, and loans are something that you get from the high street, those awful high street banks. It's, you know, it just by providing that sort of comfort layer of the grant alongside the loan, just makes it a lot more accessible for organisations that have just no idea. And we saw in the Adewale report that people, maybe underrepresented social entrepreneurs, don't have the access to family and friends who have got money to lend it to them. And that's not saying that's right or it's a generalisation, but it's just what the report came back with. And so we want to be the ones that can step up and support them.
Thank you both. There's a couple of questions coming through in the chat that I'm just going to touch on. In the decision-making process, how are your organisations ensuring that there's representation from the communities that you're providing social investment to within your organisations or within, I guess, the investment committees?
Okay. Our investment committee was totally made up of women, and all but 2 were from diverse backgrounds. And the 2 that weren't was the representative from CAF and the representative from JP Morgan. But everybody, the majority of women on there were from diverse backgrounds. And as I said, with lived experience, women of colour running social enterprises.
Yeah, and I'd say from our perspective, so the kind of the SIB investment committee is majority from diverse backgrounds, but I suppose, yeah, the kind of, I'd say the decision-making process or that due diligence process goes way beyond just the investment committee itself. So we've kind of pushed SIB to have the kind of assessors and the people supporting the application process to have kind of more representation throughout that. Also, you know, there's, I suppose, particularly for us, you know, there is, say, like myself, and I believe Jimmy from Create Equity is on the call. So we kind of support through the assessment process, but we are also present at internal reviews, internal panels and investment committees. And we literally sit there and advocate for the cases and make the case, you know, where maybe someone on the investment committee might not understand the kind of nuances of some of the kind of deep community work that the organizations are doing. We're there to kind of advocate for that and speak about that from our kind of lived and learned experience from the work that we do as well. So that comes into it too. But yeah, I think there is, you know, that is an important thing to kind of, that, you know, we are trying to advocate for more kind of representation across that decision-making process. And yeah, I do want to shout out at this point, I've said her name a few times, but JC, who is on the call, and her organization For Business Sake, they are kind of training Black and racially minoritized assessors and kind of supported people who will support people through the application process for social investment. And that's something that, you know, she's doing, and she's kind of part of the Ubele kind of family as well. So another kind of thing that we're doing there too.
Yeah, absolutely. Some great work being done For Business Sake. And JC, if you're on the call and want to hop onto the stage, please do raise your hand, and happy to bring you up to give a little bit of an update on that. Here you are.
Can you hear me? Yeah, hi. All right, yeah. Thanks for that, Joss. Appreciate that. I'm also a kind of potential recipient of the CAF Venturesome program. And what I would sort of just like to highlight is that the due diligence and, let me just explain my experience. My experience through the program has been phenomenal. So regardless of whatever the outcome is, the actual, you know, the process that you go through with CAF, with Hatch, with the trainers that they bring on board who are representative of the founders, with the ongoing support that Hatch give. And I'm just really shouting out just in terms of what the social investment sector is actually doing to support founders in their sort of process through this. You know, it truly is valuable, and we, you know, I say we are trying to do our best within our, you know, respective roles in what it is that we do. And with Addressing Imbalance, I think that the program, I've also been on the program of Addressing Imbalance, and you know, the new developments of you know, the legal structures, which is one of the questions that were answered. You know, to be able to lock that into maybe a you know, a flexible finance scheme, or to a CAF Venturesome scheme, or any of the other sort of social investment wholesalers that are out there that are providing this support. It is there, and the sector is really trying to support Black, racialized and diverse founders. It's just a minefield, and which is why Addressing Imbalance is there, why Good Finance is there, why Flexible Finance, why CAF Venturesome is there. And it's just really just trying to find that entry point into, you know, how you can get that support, but it is out there. And I think this conference, you know, alone is just letting you guys know who are trying to kind of access it, us that are kind of, you know, helping to support it, know that, you know, we are trying our best to sort of, you know, of moving forward. And, you know, in terms of not necessarily being ready for social investment, enterprise development programs are out there. As Josh mentioned, I also work for Imbalance, so we do have that program, and we're hoping to bring that program back again. You know, we're doing our best speaking to those funders to be able to help that. But one of the things that is mentioned in Addressing Imbalance is about social investment being a tool. It's just one of those tools. So trying to get your mindset from grant funding to social investment, they really are two different things. It's like going into contract and commissioning and ITTs and IQQs and whatever, you know, all of that kind of thing. It is a minefield. But, you know, just know that you're in the right place right now with the people that are on this call, that are, you know, the speakers, and those that are sort of in the room are supporting you along your journey. And that's it. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Stacey. Before you leave the stage, there's another question that's come up, which it would be great to get your input on as well as the rest of the panel, because there's a comment about funding geared towards organisations established for 2+ years. Is there support for organisations in their first 2 years of running that don't always have time or skills to access funding or income generation? And I know that's something that comes up a lot, about the capacity to apply for grants and apply for different types of funding and things. And obviously with social investment, as JC said, it is just one tool in your social toolkit, and it is repayable finance. You know, you have to have kind of a means to pay back that loan. So often for earlier stage organisations, that funding is not as accessible. So I wonder, kind of in your experience, I know, Cecilia, at Hatch, there's lots of kind of incubator programs that you guys run, and JC with the Enterprise Development Program. But I guess in terms of accessing that earlier stage funding, maybe when you're kind of not at that kind of 50k or 300k mark in terms of your revenue, what kind of additional support do you tend to signpost organisations to?
Sorry, before you go in, Cecilia, I would recommend Hatch. They've got 3 different, you know, sort of programs, and, you know, Cecilia would definitely talk about that. And Hatch aren't just sort of London. I think you're quite national. Correct me if I'm wrong, Cecilia, in terms of that. And I've got some great sponsors and funders to be able to support. Nabilia, I think it's Nabilia, who was on the call, had kind of mentioned about some, you know, funding that was available. National Lottery are just about to change their scheme. You know, the £10,000 that they used to give from Awards for All, Unlimited are out there with their small grants that are available. There are still CVSs, which are councils for voluntary services, that are still available in certain London boroughs. You know, to be able to support organisations with Joseph Rowntree funding, or, you know, all the different various, you know, Wellcome Trust, all the different funds that are out there and available to people. And in terms of enterprise development programs, there are 5 running at the moment. One is in London, which is specifically their place-based funding. So one is in London, which is specifically based in Southwark. There's an enterprise program in Manchester. There's one in Bristol, and there's another 2 around the country. But they actually provide that enterprise development support similar to what we do at Belay, in terms of being able to support you from getting that grant funding to develop an enterprising idea to potentially going on to social investment. So it's really about sort of, you know, digging in a little bit to your local area, your local borough, definitely getting onto the Addressing Imbalance website and having a look at the scope of work that's out there. But Celia, I mean, your program, I've put a lot of people through your program, so yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, JC. Really kind of you. And yes, so our programs are designed to support entrepreneurs at different stages of their journey. So we got from Launchpad, which means like for founders that are, you know, haven't necessarily launched their business, or they have an idea that they want to develop, through to incubator and accelerator. So we have those cohort programs that teach you the skills to build your business knowledge and capacity, and to really understand one of the key parts, which is what different types of funding is available for my business, and what what type of funding is the best for my business at this point in time. We also have, a resource part on our website that points you to more specific resources. And another thing that we also are able to bring to entrepreneurs is our one-on-one consultation program. So through Hatch, you can be paired with a skilled volunteer. So you can choose what type of support you would like to get, and you get that free. So if you need another pair of eyes to look into your business structure, or if you need a pair of eyes to look into, for example, a pitch deck, you can have that free one-on-one support if you go through our website as well.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, both. There's still lots of questions, and I think we could probably spend all day asking you the questions, but what I'll do is finish with one final question before we head back to the networking tables, and then hopefully if anyone does have any questions that haven't been answered, they can chat to you guys at the networking tables for the last few minutes of for the last 15 minutes of the session. Just one final question I wanted to come to was, are there any alternative models being explored outside of asset locks in terms of ensuring impact in governance?
I'm happy.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of like, good question. I suppose my immediate response to that is obviously asset locks kind of apply to some specific legal structures. If you don't have that legal structure, then yeah, I suppose you wouldn't have like an asset lock specifically written in. But if you're a charity, then I suppose there is kind of implicitly an asset lock on your organization. So yeah, in terms of beyond that, I'm not aware of too much more being explored, by the government and by policymakers. But yeah, I suppose there are kind of a range of different things. Like there's different legal models, there's asset locks, there's we might think about, I suppose, other forms of funding, like kind of revenue participation agreements, which may sort of like help to get around some of those kind of challenges. But yeah, that's what comes to mind from me.
I think for us, we know that setting up a CLS is the quickest way to set up a social business, a company limited by shares, but the company limited by guarantee or a community interest company really is the one that is easiest for us to lend to. I'm not talking about all social investors, I'm talking about CAF, because we don't use philanthropic capital to generate a profit that would then be used to fund somebody's new car or their child's school fees. Or it's the profits generated by the social enterprises that we invest in. It has to go back into that business or back into a community project. So you have to really demonstrate that the profit you're making within your CLS is for the benefit of your community organisation.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think that's a really good point. I think every social investor, has slightly different parameters of how they lend, but generally, kind of for social investment, an asset lock is generally something that's looked for. But as I say, all social investors will operate slightly differently. Ashida's just put a note in the chat about the Good Finance Programme on legal structures. This is something that we developed in partnership with Anthony Collins Solicitors and Bates Wells, and looks a little bit more about what the different legal structures are, what their implications for social investment are, and what kind of the advantages and disadvantages are. Because obviously, as Joanne said, there are some organisations which are much easier to set up, but then can have implications for accessing social investment at a later stage. And Ashida has shared a helpful kind of sheet which gives a little bit of a breakdown of the legal structures. What we'll do now is we'll head back to the networking tables just for the final 10 minutes. A huge thank you to our panel, Joanne, Josh and Cecilia, and also for JC for joining us on stage, and for my colleagues at Good Finance as well for sharing some of the updates. It's really great to have everyone here today. It's been brilliant to speak to you guys earlier. It's been great to hear from the panel about the projects and programmes that are happening. And it's great to see so much progress, I think, happening in the sector. future. It's still, you know, we've a long way to go before social investment becomes fully equitable, but it's great to see that the dial is turning and all this work is being done. So the networking tables, the event will end at 3 o'clock, but we will keep the networking tables open for anyone who's finishing conversations or anything, so please do feel free. But I'm hoping our panel can stay till 3 o'clock just to answer any final questions. And we will be sharing the recording of the session, any slides, links, and any kind of contact details that we have permission to do so with everyone after the event. So please do feel free to reach out, connect, and thank you again everyone for joining us today.